Welcome, everybody. We'll get started in just a minute. I see everybody rolling on in. We're excited that you're joining us today. Welcome if you're joining us on Zoom or if you're watching us live stream on YouTube. Welcome. Okay, I'll go ahead and get started. Well, thank you all for joining us today for today's webinar, Find the MBA Program Format for You. My name is Melissa Graham. I am a program manager here at Forte, and I'm delighted to bring an amazing panel of experts today to share their words of wisdom and their insight with you regarding which format is going to be best for you. Before I turn it over to our moderator, I would like to share just a little bit about Forte and the work that we do. We work really hard at changing the balance of power in the workplace. And how do we do that? Well, we do that by combining our forces with a powerful alliance of companies, business schools, talented women, pioneering donors, and a community, a very strong community like yourself. So you joining us today on this webinar become part of this amazing 116,000 and growing Women Rising in Business. We help to bring services and information and content to help women to reimagine what's possible for their future, for their career, for their earning potential. And we do this through several different ways. So one way is by coming to these types of webinars, these types of events that bring you information and education. We also have business role models, professional networks, leadership training. One big way is through the financial support of the Forte Fellows Program. We understand that gaining an MBA can be a huge financial lift, and we want to help you with that. So the Forte has the Forte Fellows Program, which are merit-based scholarships offered through participating partner business schools. So if you'd like to learn more about Forte Fellows and about the amazing partners that offer those, I will be dropping some links here in the chat in a minute. I suggest you bookmark them or open them so that you can refer to them later on. But like I said, we could not do the work that we do without our amazing partners. So this is just a list of our full-time Forte MBA partners, and here's a list of our executive and professional MBA partners. We'd also like to invite you to some more of our virtual events. We will be having some Forte forums coming up here in the spring. So we'll have, they're all virtual on the Ring Central platform. So it is a choose your own adventure. You can come and go as you like, sit and watch panels, go and visit multitude of amazing business schools. We will have one on February the 26th, which is an MBA forum for undergrads, March 18th, which is our MBA and working professional focused forum, and then our April 10th, which is our full-time focused MBA forum. We'd love to have you join us. You can go to our website, fortefoundation.org/forums, and register there for free. You're welcome to come to one, two, or all of them. Another opportunity we have for you is if you're looking to build your best MBA application. So if you're looking to apply fall of 2025, so the end of fall of this year, to sit into a business classroom next year, then you should look into the MBA Launch Program. It is an 8-month program that is geared to guide you through all the components of the application process. We would love to have you join us. The cohort did start about 2 days ago, but not a problem. It is not too late. You can still catch up. We have extended the deadline to February 9th, so this Sunday. So be sure to get your application in this Sunday. The application fee is only $35. We're reviewing applications as quickly as we can on a rolling basis so that we can get you a decision for the program. You can scan this QR code. You can go to fortefoundation.org/MBA launch, or like I said, I'm going to be dropping those links here in the chat as well. So we'd love to help you on your journey to an MBA. Some other Forte MBA virtual events that you are welcome to attend that once again are free to register. As I mentioned, our forums will also have an MBA launch info session coming up on February 18th. And then we'd love to see you again at one of our pre-MBA webinars later this month in just a couple of weeks, the impact of an MBA for women of color. So same platform, same time, we'd love to see you again. I want to give a big shout out, huge thank you to these 4 amazing schools that are sponsoring today's webinar. Like I said, we could not bring the content that we do. We could not do the work that we do without the amazing support of these schools. So thank you so much to Northeastern, USC Marshall, Cambridge Judge, and Yale School of Management. Thank you so much for sponsoring today's webinar. We're looking forward to hearing your insights. If you'd like to meet these schools, don't forget, register for the forums, and you might be able to talk personally or through chat with one of these schools at our upcoming forum. So now I will stop sharing and stop talking because I know you want to get straight to the content, and I'm going to turn it over to Barbara Kraft from the University of Pennsylvania, Wharton, to lead us in our discussion. So Barbara, the show is yours.
Thank you, Melissa, and a big thanks to Forte for the amazing support that you give and inspiration to women considering programs. I am thrilled to be here with you today. As Melissa mentioned, I'm Barb Kraft. I'm Director of Admission for the Wharton MBA program for executives, and we have two different formats at the Wharton School. We have our full-time MBA, in which people would leave their careers and attend full-time on campus for 2 years, their MBA. And then we also have our MBA program for executives, in which we have 3 different cohorts for consideration. We have our Philadelphia cohort, our San Francisco cohort on our San Francisco campus, and we have a new global cohort that is offering the executive MBA around the globe. So I know this can be really overwhelming, and I want to say congratulations on taking this first step in your personal and professional development by just diving into these different formats. And there are more than ever, so I know it can be confusing. And I know that my colleagues here on the line are really going to help you do your best to kind of clarify some of that. So with that, I'm going to start with Elizabeth because I just see she's closest to me. I'm going to ask each of our panelists to please introduce themselves. And if you would, share the formats that your school offers. Elizabeth?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Barb. My name is Elizabeth Langer. I'm from the recruitment and admissions team here at Cambridge Judge, and we do offer 3 different MBA formats. We have our full-time MBA, which is kind of the classic flagship that we started off with. We also have our executive MBA, which is a 2-year part-time course, and we additionally have our much more recent global executive MBA, which similarly is sort of a part-time course, but is a little bit more for people who are maybe a bit more scattered around the globe and don't have as much time to commute to Cambridge.
Laura?
Hello, everyone. I'm Laura from USC Marshall. So greetings from rainy Los Angeles, having a rare rainy day here. We actually have 5 different MBA programs, so I'm really pleased to get the opportunity to really break down those with you. We've got our traditional 2-year full-time MBA. We have a 3-year part-time MBA for someone who intends to work while pursuing an MBA, and we have a weekday or an evening option for that one. We have an online MBA, which means you could be a Marshall student without being in Los Angeles. We have an executive MBA for someone who's a more seasoned professional. And then we do have a 1-year MBA, but that is also for someone who is more seasoned, and that tends to draw mostly an international audience.
Diana?
Hi, everyone. Diana Economy from the Yale School of Management. Great to have you all today. At Yale School of Management, we have a full-time MBA program, 2-year residential, as well as an MBA for executives, which is 2 years as well, except it's every other weekend in New Haven, and then some select residency weeks, including one that is held abroad. On a personal note, I will let you know that I have my MBA as well, and I was a little bit more seasoned than a full-time MBA cohort, but did opt for a full-time program. But I considered both part-time as well as executive MBA formats, and so I'm happy to talk more about some of the decision-making and what that looks like. But in general, I hope you leave here today knowing that we're here to support you and wherever your journey takes, and so we're looking forward to answering your questions. Thanks, Barb.
Thank you. Dina?
Hi, everyone. I want to second Barb's congratulations on taking this step towards your MBA journey, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Dina Snyder. I'm part of the graduate recruitment and admissions team here at Northeastern's DeMoore McKim School of Business in snowy Boston. So we have not quite a blizzard, but a very snowy day here outside. my window. We also offer several options for an MBA. Our full-time MBA is 2 years, and notably it includes what we call a corporate residency or co-op, so students work for 6 months of the 2 years. We offer a professional evening MBA, so that is a great flexible option in the evening for working professionals, as well as an online MBA, which is designed for seasoned professionals, kind of a little bit further in their career, who are not physically here coming to our Boston campus.
Could you all please help the audience understand some of the big differences between these part-time MBAs or working professional MBAs or the executive MBA and the full-time MBA? So many different formats. So if anyone would like to take that, I think it would be helpful.
Sure, I'll jump in because I'm one of those schools that has a lot of different programs. And when I joined this role, I had to figure out what was what. But I would say the 2 programs of our suite of MBAs that are most similar would be the full-time and part-time. You tend to find students at a similar part of their career, which is, maybe 3 to 5 years out of undergrad. And actually, that's one thing I will say about all of our MBA programs. We really do prefer work experience, highly prefer some work experience. And that's really what sets the MBA apart from, a Master of Science in Marketing or a Master of Science in Finance. So full-time and part-time, they're very similar. The big difference is how much of your time is invested in the program. So if you're in a part-time program, you're typically working full-time. If you're a full-time student, and this is probably similar to my colleagues, your job is really to be an MBA student full-time. And then, really the most different programs would be that executive and the IBEAR, which is our 1-year program. That's really for, as we said, a seasoned professional, someone who might be 10, 15 years out of school and perhaps at a more executive level. And then our online program, I would say it's really more of a range of interest in that program. So there's probably some similarities with my colleagues in that.
Yeah, if I could just kind of elaborate a little bit on what Laura was saying. It is probably one of the most common questions that I'll answer for students, whether they're thinking about a full-time or a part-time MBA. Students who, like Laura said, are kind of in that same range of work experience. And what I tend to ask them to reflect on is, the choices about pursuing an MBA while in school and growing your career while pursuing an MBA, or leaving the workforce for an immersive experience. So I tend to ask students, are you looking to make a really big transition? So for example, if the work that you're doing, you're on a professional path that is not what you're looking to do in the longer term, and it is feasible to immerse yourself in a full-time MBA program, that can be a great option. Definitely for career switchers, you'll have the opportunity to get, we're at Northeastern, it would be the 6-month co-op, or I know, an internship would be a part of nearly all MBA programs. That would likely not be something that you would have the opportunity to do if you were working full-time and employed at another company. Whereas if you are really thriving in your career, you're doing an MBA to kind of develop some leadership skills and hone your business skills. Continuing to develop more work experience at your company could be the right choice. It may not make sense for you to leave the workforce when you have the option to be developing an MBA level skill set while doing an MBA. So kind of that question of, are you looking to kind of stay growing your career in your current industry, or are you looking to make a big transition? That can be something to think about in terms of the decision to pursue a part-time or full-time program.
I think to build off of that, another important thing to consider is where you are in your career, but additionally, who you would be bringing along with you. So sometimes people who are a little bit further along in their career might also have families, they might have children, they might have pets, and those are some things that you might want to consider. Maybe you can't transplant your family to Cambridge in the UK or to LA, and maybe it's more feasible for you to pursue an online MBA or a hybrid MBA, which really have those flexibility that you can work around maybe young children or families who aren't at a place where they can be transplanted. So there's a lot of things in the work part of your life, but also in the life part of your life that you might want to start to consider when you're thinking about the different kinds of MBAs and how they could impact you. So there are a lot of as you mentioned, Barb, there are a lot of different kinds of MBAs, and there are more so than ever. And a lot of those are able to kind of cater towards different styles of life and different things that you've got going on.
And just to add on to that, I think, there's a lot of you today, some of you that are maybe a little bit more junior in your career, some of you that are a little bit more senior. So probably a lot of different, considerations that we have while we're here on the webinar. One thing that I'll advise is take a look at the class profiles of the schools that you're looking at. So sometimes we'll use words generically sort of across schools. Like, for example, the average age of Yale's MBA for executives is 39. It very well may be 30 or 32 at another place, right? And so that's not, that is truly the average. And so that's not to say Yale doesn't have folks that fall across a spectrum as these other schools do. But I think it will give you a sense for sort of the average years of work experience, which is going to give you a lens into what people are bringing to that conversation when they come to the classroom and the depth of experience that they have. That's one of the reasons that at least executive programs sort of maintain this level of people that are a little bit more seasoned, because it allows for them to bring some of the real world, let's say, leadership challenges and things that they have managing a team to the work that they're doing. One thing, though, that I want to mention that I think is sort of the hallmark difference, at least between a full-time program and part-time options, is full-time, right? So when you think about a full-time program, this really is the program that is going to give you by far the most in-depth experience, because people have left their work behind and they are spending 100% of their time on their MBA. That doesn't mean that some might not work part-time while they're there. I just mean they don't have substantive work concurrently while they're pursuing their MBA. And for me, that format choice was something that I really valued, because I really wanted the immersion that came with that. Again, that is not to say that part-time programs can't offer you some level of immersion or extracurriculars or in-depth involvement. It's just to say that everybody in those programs is working, right? Another at least 20 hours a week, typically, if not more, on a normal basis. And so their time is split between the two. So I would say start with a format that you think is going to best suit your learning needs and where you are in your career. I often hear women say, I can't give up my job. That's it. I have to work. That's it. The money coming in is the most important thing to me. But then they start to take a look at options, perhaps like a full-time program where there are scholarships that are available. There are full-time internships that you do that pay the rate of a regular role that you might be going into. So it's not uncommon at a top school to be making $30,000 over the summer, for example. So I offer that to say, take a look at the formats just from a pure learning perspective first, as well as a lifestyle perspective, and then try to figure out the financing to figure out how you can make the program that's going to be best for you work, given that you're only going to do this once. So find the one that's going to be the best for you.
I love that point of only doing it once. So you really do want to do your due diligence up front, and fit is just so important. If you are happy in your career and it's going along well, I also encourage people to have those meaningful conversations with their employers, because they may fund your MBA. And in a executive format where you don't leave your career, the employer may very well help support your MBA. You will need to have conversations with them, because there will likely be some release time involved where you're doing your MBA simultaneously while working. But the other thing is, don't be afraid to talk to them, and really start convincing them that this is going to have greater impact on the organization for you as an employee, and therefore gain their support both in terms of time and in terms of money. And we do see that across the board, from people who fully fund their executive program to companies that fund it 100% to everything in between. So make sure you sit down and talk with your employer, if you're planning to stay in your career, about your desires, your aspirations, and how they can play a role in that. Now, some of the part-time programs, you do not need that release time from your company because the class hours fall, maybe during the week in an evening or on a Saturday. But a lot of executive programs do carve out some company time, perhaps like a Friday every other week or once a month or that kind of thing, where you need the employer on board as well. So that could be a consideration too. And some great points about if you're looking to make a sharp left-hand turn in your career in your few years in with your career, and yet you want to go a different direction, that full-time immersive experience where you can do those internships and gain experience in the area in which you want to pivot can be very impactful. I will say that regardless of the program, I think it's comfortable to say that all these programs have immense career support, whether you're doing a full-time, a part-time, or an executive program, where there are career teams that are going to help you navigate along the way. So I know the term executive can be a little confusing for folks. Anybody want to address whether you actually need to be an executive and what level you need to be at in the organization to be considered for an executive program?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first thing to think about is that this can mean very different things at different schools. So the first thing to do is to start to do your research and look at different programs that you're interested in, what they mean by executive. So I can speak for Cambridge a little bit. But when we're talking about executive MBAs, we're typically looking for people who are in more kind of senior management places. In their career, they have some managerial responsibility, and maybe they're looking to make that kind of like final push into the C-suite, or maybe they're looking to start their own venture. So we're typically looking for people who have more experience, and depending on where you're coming from in your career, that could look like a lot of things and doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be an executive in those exact words. So I think the best thing that you can do if you're not sure whether you meet the requirements of the program is just reach out to the admissions team, to the recruitment team, and say, hey, would I be a good fit for this program? And that's something that I would repeat over and over again, is talk to us. And I'm sure that all of my colleagues here will agree. We're very happy to kind of answer your questions, tell you whether maybe a full-time MBA or a different program might be the best fit for you now.
And I'll jump in too. So, our kind of career level that we're looking for the executive MBA at Marshall, very similar to what Elizabeth said, sort of, it could be senior management, not necessarily an executive, maybe someone who's heading that direction. But at Marshall, and I'm sure at some of the other schools, there's really a big difference in curriculum. So it's not just about having a more seasoned professional. It's the idea that you're actually in more of a thematic content. So you might have one semester is focused on leadership, the next semester is focused on accounting and finance. So you may not get the flexibility that you have within a full-time or a part-time. So in our full-time, part-time, you really get to specialize in a specific academic track that you're interested in. So I've actually had someone with 10 years at work experience come to me and they say, am I a better fit for the part-time or the executive? And I ask them, well, really, what do you want to do with this? Do you want to explore different career paths? Do you want to kind of choose your own courses? Then the full-time might be a better fit for you. So also look at sort of what the content of these programs are all about.
I think just to add quickly to that, another thing is, again, kind of focused on what you're getting out of the program, is who do you want your cohort to be? As we talked about in the last kind of question, the full-time MBA or other ones might be focused a little bit more on maybe mid-career professionals, and it depends on who you want to be a part of your network, and who you think would help you to kind of progress and get to where you want to be after your MBA, whichever format it might be.
And I think these audiences can be very diverse, whether you're in a full-time program or an executive or part-time program. We certainly see doctors, lawyers, Navy SEALs, people from not-for-profit applying to our program and enrolled in the program. And, a doctor may say, wait, am I an executive? But they still add an incredible amount of value in the classroom. So I think the term executive sometimes can be misleading. So whatever you do in all of these cases, do not rule yourself out. I know it was mentioned, we all want to help you through this process and help you find the right fit. So, the worst thing, it always keeps me awake at night, the people who self-select out, right? So really go for it, explore the programs, and then get to the point of applying for the program that you really feel is right for you. And I know Laura talked about the curriculums differ at every program, every school, every format. So start making spreadsheets, talk to as many people as you can, alumni, current students, the teams at these schools. They all have advisors and admissions counselors and so forth, and lots of different events for each individual school to be able to participate in and engage with that school, so you can start, really understanding the culture and the fit. And at the end of the day, it'll become more and more clear. And when you get to that application process, team on the line, recommendations on how they might differ and structure, whether they're in a part-time, full-time, or exec applying to one of the various options.
Like how to navigate which one's the best fit for them.
Yeah, and I guess when applying, what does the admissions committee look for that may differ between the formats?
Well, I think to start with, as you're exploring the formats, there's a couple different things to absorb, I think, first to really figure out which format is going to be the best. And so all programs are going to have a variety of online events where you can learn a little bit more about the content and the format, of course, but some programs will also have consultations. So for example, at Yale, you can submit kind of a profile to the executive MBA program, and one of the members of our team will reach out and guide you through that conversation to try to understand if that program is going to be a fit. So know that there are resources to even get you to the what is the admissions committee looking and how might it differ between the programs for you to come to the table with a better understanding for you which program might make sense. I'll hand it over to my colleagues if they're on the evaluation side, a little bit additional context between the various formats.
I think that school by school, it might look fairly similar program to program in terms of what you're looking for. I think at Cambridge, we tend to, regardless of program, look for people who would really thrive within the Cambridge community, within our ethos. So, we'd look for people who are curious, people who are really practical and want to collaborate on projects. People who are really willing to dive into kind of the community aspect. And we really value that regardless of which program you're applying for. And so that's one thing that, you might say that's really important to me. And then you can start to decide based off of that. But the things that you might want to think about are, does the program actually align in terms of their requirements? So if you apply to our full-time MBA and you say, I can't wait to keep working throughout this, we might say, oh, whoa, hold your horses, because that's not something that we can really accommodate. And similarly, if you're applying to the executive MBA or the global executive MBA, and you say, I can't wait to move to Cambridge full-time to pursue this, again, that doesn't necessarily align. So we're looking for people whose goals, what they want to get out of the program will align with what that program can actually offer them. And that applies to both, the actual structure of the program as well as your goals and what you want to get out of it. So the best thing you can do, I think, is to actually look at what the program is offering, as well as what the school is offering, and then apply from there.
And one thing
I would agree with, sorry what Elizabeth was saying, but just, I think she highlighted the real importance of doing your research and making sure that that research is reflected, whether it's in your essay and your interview. We all know that we are amongst great colleagues and that you're likely applying to or have your eye on several MBA programs. So that's something that we are aware of. And in reviewing applications, it strengthens your application for the reader or the admissions committee to understand, wow, they really they're applying to our program for the right reasons. So whether you've attended a webinar, whether you visited campus or talked to an alum, to be able to kind of reflect that learning in your essay shows the admissions committee that you're really taking your candidacy to this school seriously. So, along the lines of, here in Northeastern, we're in Boston. If I'm reading an essay, or someone tells me I like Northeastern because it's in Boston. Well, there's a lot of great programs in Boston. So how can we, I'm looking to kind of suss out what specifically about Northeastern really stands out to you. Is it our co-op, experiential learning? All of the schools that you're looking at will have certain distinguishing factors that make those programs really exciting. So certainly, take advantage of all the opportunities that you can to learn about the program, whether you're applying to a full-time or part-time program. It really will strengthen your application to be as specific as possible.
I would definitely, agree with all of Dina's insights. And we talk a lot about fit. We've already used that word several times. Kind of look at the admissions process as a two-way decision making, right? So, I mean, when people say, oh, I've just applied to USC, it's the only school I've applied to, I think, oh, well, I think there's a lot of value in casting your net when you're going through this process, because as you're applying, you're still getting to know about each program. Definitely talk to students. Dina was saying, get to know about the specific program you're applying to and really pitch yourself to that school. So this really does come up, especially an interview. So an interview is required, I would say, for all of our full-time program applications, probably most of our part-time, our executive as well. The interview is a big part of this application. And Elizabeth was talking about some of these traits that are not just your numbers, your GPA, your test scores, but really some of these personal qualities that you'll bring to the program, leadership potential, engagement, teamwork. Those are the type of things that we're really assessing in an interview, and they can often carry as much weight as who you are on paper.
So along the lines of application and applying, we did have a question come through asking, can I apply to multiple programs at the same school within the same admission cycle? So I'll start off to say at Wharton, we do not allow that. But I know it differs per school, but we really want you to kind of do that homework up front and really be applying to the program that you feel is absolutely the best fit for you at the time. Now, that's not to say that we haven't had people who applied for our full-time MBA years ago and then decided to continue with their career and then applied for the executive program years later. But we do not allow multiple applications within the same cycle. But if each of you could share the policies at your school, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, ours differs from that, Barb. So at USC, you can apply to multiple programs. I would say the most common situation would be someone who applies for the full-time and the part-time. And at a lot of schools, the full-time is more competitive, so it might be harder to get into. So a lot of students are doing that. Maybe the part-time is a backup. Maybe they haven't decided yet, am I going to step out of work or not? But I would say if I see someone who's applying for the full-time, part-time, and the executive, I really question if they really understand the nuances between the programs. And typically, if someone does apply for more than one program, you would only interview one time for our school. But at that point, I would really want to have a conversation with the student and figure out which of those programs is really their main top preference.
I completely agree. You can apply for our MBA and our MBA at the same time, but we've certainly had people in the past who've applied for the MBA, the GEMBA, the MFin, the MBA, and you start to ask yourself, well, what do they want to get out of this? Because these are four vastly different programs, and is their goal just, I want to do a degree again, or I just want to do maybe something that I feel is the right thing to do now, and I don't know what it is, and I haven't really gone through the research. And so it is a little bit of the optics of really saying, I've done my research. I know that I want to apply here. We've talked about the fact that, you can cast your net wide. But think about how wide you want to cast your net, and how it looks when you apply to, maybe 3 or 4 different programs. And if you apply the next year and maybe you say in 2025, I want to apply for the MBA, and you think of it over the coming year, and you say, oh, actually, maybe the MBA is the right fit for me, and you apply to a different one the next year. That does give us the thought that, oh, you've done your research, you've thought a little bit more, you've reflected, maybe you've moved a little bit on in your career, but start to think about why you might want to apply to 4 different programs in the same year, and what's your goal. And also, do you have the time to do that many different applications in one year? Because it does take up your time.
I can answer for Yale. So just to give you some context, the full-time MBA, the average years of work experience is 5, and for the executive program, it's 16. So we don't often find that people are at that intersection of sort of equally considering both programs. Of course, those are those are averages, so there is a range of years of work experience in each of the programs. But no, you have to choose which program you wish to apply to in that admission cycle. But I think that's why there's so many resources for you online. And again, to really hone in on what you're trying to get out of the program, because as we've discussed, even the way that the curriculum is delivered can vary a bit in terms of the people that are in the classroom, the way that they're engaging with that experience in that curriculum, even though the outcome for both formats is an MBA degree. So you really want to do some preliminary work to figure out which program is best and apply to that program.
I would agree with what Diana said, even though at Northeastern we do accept multiple applications in a year. It is more common, sometimes we'll see a student apply for the full-time MBA, maybe in a specialized master's program. And I would say, really put your best foot forward and dedicate your time to the program that you're most interested in. And if that's the full-time MBA, do what you can to make sure that application is as strong as possible. Sometimes I'll talk with applicants who will say, I'm worried I may not get into the full-time MBA program. Can I also apply to the, to these 3 master's programs, which are my, second and third choice? I said, you know what? Don't think like that right now. The application process is your opportunity to be your best cheerleader. Whether it's retaking the GMAT, taking a Coursera class, like if the MBA is your stated goal, rather than, as Elizabeth said, spreading yourself thin, working on 4 applications, really dedicate yourself to ensuring that your MBA application, if that is your priority and your goal, is as strong as it can be when you're ready to submit.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned testing, because we have a question in the chat. Is it necessary to have a GMAT or GRE to create a strong application for an MBA at the best business schools?
I would say that, again, as we've heard, it's really important to do your research. So at Northeastern, we are test optional, it's not required. And, one thing that I will say, and sometimes students are deciding whether they want to take a score or not, it is to your discretion. Sometimes I'll have a conversation with a student and they will feel like, maybe I did my undergrad years ago, I've matured since then, maybe my GPA doesn't reflect my abilities, or there's some other kind of concern you have in your application. If that is the case, oftentimes strength in one area can offset a weakness in another area. Or if you're just an excellent test taker and you always have been since you took the SATs in high school, if the GMAT is going to be or the GRE a strength for you, go for it. If you feel a little bit concerned with maybe some of your quant grades in undergrad, all of the admissions committees are going to be looking at your academic background to ensure that you can handle the academic rigor of a really challenging MBA. And if you feel like that maybe is not reflected to the extent you wish in your transcript, then even if it's optional, you may want to consider taking one of those tests.
At USC Marshall, the test, we are looking for a GMAT GRE for full-time, part-time. We do have a test waiver option that we introduced over since the pandemic. That's really reserved for someone who's got a particularly strong quantitative background, particularly academically. And then if you're looking at a program like executive, there the test is completely optional, GMAT, GRE, and I would say probably very few people are taking that. You know, they've been out of work 10, 15 years, and taking a standardized test is just not really in their plans. And so with that, I mean, certainly we'll still look at your academic work, but I would say we do place more emphasis on the professional aspect. So if you're applying for an executive MBA and you had some challenges, 15 years ago in undergrad, some advanced professional, your resume might really offset some of that.
In terms of choosing which program to apply for us, there is a bit of a difference between the MBA and the executive MBA programs in that for the MBA, you do have to take either the GMAT or the GRE. Dina mentioned academic rigor, and we do see that as something that helps us to kind of see whether somebody might be a good fit for the program, because it is, I think people forget, the MBA is quite an academically rigorous course. Whereas for the executive MBAs, there's the additional option of taking the executive assessment, the EA, or there's the opportunity to apply for a GMAT or a GRE waiver. So there's a little bit more flexibility around testing. So if that's an area that you're kind of deciding between the executive or the full-time MBA, there might be differences. We talked earlier about the differences in applying, and that might be an area where that could be a make or break for you if you think, I really just don't have the time. I'm balancing a lot and I don't necessarily have the time to prep for the GRE or the GMAT at this point. Maybe that's something that could be important for you to think about.
At Yale, the test scores are required for our MBA programs, both the full-time as well as the program for executives, with a notable exception, as you mentioned, of the executive assessment being allowed for the executive program. If you're not familiar with the executive assessment, I would take a look at it. It was created by the people that created the GMAT, specifically for executive MBA programs to be able to test skills and experiences, truthfully, for people who've been out of school for a little bit longer. And it's a different way for people to be able to convey the information that they have that's sort of equivalent, that's going to be appropriate for the program that they're going to be a part of. So I would look into it if it's not something you've heard of. If you are looking at programs that do have a test requirement, don't freak out. I will tell you that I was about 8 years out of undergrad when I took the GMAT. I took it 2 times. I increased my score tremendously the second time, but it did require that I took some direct focus on, I ended up taking basically a class to sort of get back up to speed, because it wasn't something that I felt on my own I would be well equipped to be able to self-study some of the things that I needed. It was all knowledge that I had. It was things that I had learned in my past. It was sort of rediscovering some of that knowledge, but also building a set of test-taking skills that was going to suit me as I took that test. And so the test-taking skills, maybe above all else, was the most important thing that I gained from that class, because again, it's knowledge that you have. It's how do you apply it in a standardized way across these tests that's going to get to the output that truly showcases your skills and abilities. So don't worry, put together a plan, sign up to take the test. Schools will take your highest score for the most part, so you want to take a look at that across schools, but it is very much okay to take it more than once if that's what's needed to get to where you feel comfortable with that.
And I'll just jump in, piggyback on Diana. I know that the test is probably the most anxiety provoking aspect, and people think, oh, my test score defines me. And we'll use this word a lot, holistic review. But if I have a candidate who's got a really strong GPA, maybe a weaker test score and a great interview, I can really advocate for that person and I can see them coming into the program. So the test score does not define you. You also have an opportunity, like Diana said, she, on her second attempt, she really increased her own score. And we do tend to see that with test takers. So let's say you're applying and you're anxious to meet a deadline. Most schools will let you indicate that you have maybe a retest coming, and you can indicate that. And that really keeps the door open for you. And it does also show us that you've taken that initiative. You understand maybe that you have a weakness in the test score and you're planning to retest. And so even once an application has been submitted, a lot of schools do allow you to update your test score after the application deadline.
I think even if, just really quickly, even if the school doesn't have that indication on the portal, send them an email, say like, I just got this score in. We understand that sometimes people just have bad days. Sometimes it's not the day that you wanted that test to happen. Your internet goes out, or you're just have an off day, and we absolutely understand that. We're all human too. And drop us an email, say like, I just retook this. Is there any possibility you could include this in your assessment of my application? And the worst thing that they could say is no. And the best thing that they could say is absolutely, please come to our program. So
hopefully what you're hearing here is planning, understanding the admissions criteria for each school and understanding that well in advance so that you can build out your timeline. At the Wharton School, we also require a standardized test of all of our candidates, regardless of the program that they're applying to, and those scores need to be in by the deadline. And it was said, you know, don't freak out about this. It actually can be a great dress rehearsal for what's to come. It can get you back into the study mode. It can get back into the testing mode for some people who have been out of that routine for a very long time. But look at these timelines and back them up from deadline and all the pieces that you need to do leading up to that deadline. And most schools have multiple deadlines. So understanding as well, what are those deadlines? And especially as you're applying to different schools and how those may play out. All right, well, fantastic. We're rolling right along here. Other things that candidates should think about that as they're considering schools, as they're considering programs.
Yeah, I want to mention one thing. We've talked about, choosing a program based on where you are in your career and what your goals are. Also, you might want to look at some of the program formats. So, for example, pre-pandemic, our executive MBA was every other Friday, Saturday. Now the world is a place where we really want and we're seeking more flexibility. So we listen to the students, and now we have a weekday evening online, and then we've got every other Saturday. So adding more flexibility. And I think a lot of our programs are examining how we can offer these programs in a way that meets the needs of of you guys, of the students. And so, for example, our part-time MBA, you could choose when you're applying, you would choose to be a Tuesday, Thursday student in the evenings or a Saturday student. Some students do not want to give up that valuable Saturday time. And then with a full-time MBA program, again, I think we've talked about this, we really would discourage people from having a side project or working on the side with a full-time, because the full-time is, even if you're not in class, 40 hours a week, you will fill up those spaces between class with team projects, career development, getting ready for classes. And so I tend to say that a full-time MBA student spends 50 to 60 hours a week doing MBA activities and opportunities beyond just the classroom. So format is a big part of it, especially as you're trying to figure out which program is going to fit with the needs of your lifestyle.
I think there are also other things that you might want to consider that kind of fall outside of the remit of the program. So for example, in the UK, one thing that our students really benefit from is that they have the opportunity to apply for a 2-year postgraduate visa, but that's only an opportunity for those who are studying full time. So if you maybe want to make a geographic change, the opportunity for you might be to pursue a full-time MBA, because although you get to visit the UK over the course of your 2 years, and you do start to make those connections within the UK or within broader Europe, if you're doing maybe an EMBA or a GEMBA, you don't have that direct line to the visa. So there are things that you can start to consider in terms of what you want to get out of the program. Maybe one of the programs that you're considering has really strong ties to a certain industry that you're interested in. Or maybe there's a faculty member even who teaches on one of the programs, but not the other, that you say, I really want to learn from them. What a great person to have within my network. And so those are the kind of things that you can maybe start to consider that aren't necessarily the first thing that comes to mind, but that do become apparent once you've started to do a little bit more research into the different programs and started to speak to people as well who are on both programs.
What type of impact can candidates expect as a result of the MBA, whether it's through an executive or part-time or full-time program? Of course, ROI is always a big question in everyone's mind. I prefer to say ROE, return on education, but kind of what are you seeing at your schools, and what can someone expect?
I think one thing we haven't talked about is the network of people that you're going to be around, the caliber of classmates, the caliber of faculty, the caliber of alums that you're going to have engagement with. And so when you think about impact, of course, there's going to be personal growth, there's going to be leadership development, there's going to be the academic, knowledge that you're going to gain. But one of the reasons to be a part of really what we're talking about is largely cohort-driven programs, right? Where you're going through a series of coursework, maybe with some selection, but you've got a cohort of people that you're going to be learning with, from, and around. And I think the knowledge that you're going to gain from those that are around you is really, truly going to be invaluable, not only as you look to make the next steps in your career and maybe the kind of impact that you're going to be making there, and maybe feeling more prepared, more confident, or more able to take that next step. But even as you think about 5 years out, 10 years out, 15 years out, when you think about, I'm ready to be an entrepreneur, and I'm really strong at A and B, but C and D are things that I'm aware of, but maybe don't know quite as well. Well, I've got this whole network of people around me that are there that can be advisors to me, can be partners for me. And the number of people who form partnerships and relationships that end up into business relationships later can be tremendous. So I think impact is very personally defined in terms of what you're looking to get out of the program, but know that these programs are going to be a platform for that future success. Not even just right away. Yes, that will be there too, but really the longevity of this degree can't be understated.
Absolutely. And I think, Barb, you said ROE, return on education, but I think ROE could also be return on experience, because what you're learning absolutely doesn't happen within a vacuum. So our Jumbo students will go all over the world for different international business study trips, and our full-time MBA students are part of the larger university network, which is something that really can't be mentioned enough. The number of people that you meet outside of your cohort, outside of the MBA and the business school. I think one of our students said that the person that your co-founder is going to be sitting next to you at dinner and you won't even know it. And it's those kind of things that you really you can't put a price on. The experience, our students have access to the careers team even after they've graduated. They have this toolkit that they're bringing into the rest of their lives with them. And those are the sort of things that, you can say, 2 years on, here's what I've done. Here's my salary. Here's the promotion or the move or this, that, or the other that I've made. But there are a lot of things that you're carrying into the future with yourself. Ultimately, what you're doing through your MBA and through your education is you're improving and you're investing in yourself. And those are the kind of things, the upskilling, the network, that you really can't emphasize enough. And also, I think that it's hard to put, a number on those. So ultimately, it's what you want to get out of it. But a lot of what you do get out of it is things that you really couldn't have even imagined when you started, and that you can't have really quantified.
I would strongly agree with Elizabeth's statements that it's hard to put a price on, accomplishing your goal. So, I mean, I think really the MBA is going to help you get somewhere that you most likely would not have got without it, whether it's a transition. I can think of so many students over the duration of my time at Northeastern who, were in one industry, say they were in X industry and they were super passionate about brand marketing, and that was their goal, and they've been applying for brand marketing jobs and were not getting interviews, and were not, they were not getting to that career destination and able to meet those aspirations without an MBA. And then, they come to business school at Northeastern with our co-op model, say they're doing a co-op and working for 6 months at a company that they would not have, even dreamed of getting an interview at before the MBA, and then land a job there after graduation. So I think aside from the ROE, ROI, however you want to say it, you can't put a price on being able to land in that industry that you have really dreamed about being in.
And the last thing I'll add is really the diverse exposure that you get. I mean, I can't think of any other graduate level program where you're sitting next to people that have such different academic and such different work experiences in different parts of the world, within your specific cohort. So that's another thing about MBAs. We're not just looking for people who've done an undergrad in business, or undergrad in economics, but we've got history majors and English majors and biologists and people who've worked in nonprofit and people who've worked for family business. And so you really get to learn more about how the world of business works. You're going to learn about roles and companies you weren't exposed to before this program. So yes, you want to come in with clear goals, but you'll have an opportunity to really fine tune and shape those goals in the program as well.
I think one last thing for me to add is that I think all of us can agree that when you do an MBA, it changes you. And you might go in and you say, I want to go into this industry. I want to make this change. And maybe throughout the course of, for us, 1 year, for you guys, 2 years, you decide this just isn't me, but I've met this person who did this thing and oh my gosh, that is what I want to be doing. That's a little bit of me. And it's those kind of things that maybe you never would have been able to encounter. Maybe that's through one of the trips that you're doing as part of a part-time MBA. You go, our students are going to Nairobi this year, for example, and there's so many things happening that they might not have experienced otherwise. Maybe it's through a full-time MBA and you're attending a society lecture on something completely separate to what you've been doing in your everyday life, and you say, oh my gosh, I need to know more. And it's those things that it's going to change you. You might go in with one idea and you come out with a completely different career than you expected, in a good way.
Go in eyes wide open. And I always say money on education is never wasted. This is an investment in yourself that no one can ever take away from you, that will only build over time. And the network that you make, the people surrounding you, I know we talked about that, are going to be lifelong, not only sometimes business partners, and colleagues, but also friends. I mean, it's a really exciting time. We're really excited for all of you. I know we're coming up on the hour, so I'm just going to give our panelists an opportunity for any kind of closing thought, and then we'll wrap it up.
I would just say talk to students in those various programs that you're considering. I mean, even more so than connecting with us, we would, of course, love to continue conversations with you as admissions officers, but really talking to those students and those alums will really give you a lot of insight into what those programs are all about.
That was gonna be the same thing I was gonna say. It's so invaluable to have those conversations, but I would also say don't be shy. If you have a question, should I retake the GMAT? Should I have this person or this person write that letter of recommendation? I'm really agonizing over whether I should apply to part-time or full-time. Hopefully you've seen today how approachable we are and how eager we are to support you in this journey. So reach out to the admissions team at any school you're thinking about if you're on the fence about anything. We would rather help you get to that answer than have you just stress about it or guess.
One thing to think about, this is a very self-reflective process, and one of the things to really do now is, who are you? Like, what are you driven by? Like, when you think about the work that you're doing now, what really energizes you about that work? It might only be a portion of the time for what you're doing now, and you want to be able to do it more. Maybe that's why you're looking to get an MBA, so that you can maximize the kinds of things and the work that you like to do and the space that you want to be able to do it in. But you have to know that about you, because the MBA is going to give you a toolkit to be able to put around sort of who you are, and to give you different ways to think about things, and different new people, new networks, maybe new opportunities. You're going to be exposed to things you didn't even know existed. But if you go into an MBA program and you're sort of open to like everything, and you're not going to be quite as successful as if you were more focused on who you are and maybe who you are not. And the kinds of things that you don't like are equally as important as knowing the things you do like, so that when you're there in the limited amount of time that you do have, you're able to maximize the opportunities that are going to best position you for your next steps. The class is incredibly diverse, so you're not going to be necessarily doing what the people next to you are doing. So take this time now to really know more about you, and that will also help guide you as to the kind of program I think that might be the best fit for you.
I agree completely with all of those, particularly speaking to the alumni and the students. And the one piece of advice that I'll share is actually something that one of our alumni said to me that really stuck. Is that when you're approaching your applications, a lot of times it can seem like a chore. It can seem like you're writing all these essays, you're laboring over them. But I think a really good way to approach them is as an exercise for yourself. And an exercise in what you want to get out of the next 5-10 years, where the MBA is going to fit into your life for you. Approach it with joy and creativity and openness to say, what do I want to do? That's a great question. Where do I want to be? Why do I want to do an MBA? And that way, even if you decide, I don't want to do an MBA, I want to do an MBA. I don't want to do an MBA, I want to do an online program. I don't want to do one at all. You'll have gotten a lot out of it because you'll have been able to reflect on yourself and what you want to get out of the next 5, 10, 20 years. And if you're self-reflecting, it can never be time wasted.
I like that. I like that. Approach it with joy. This is an exciting, incredible opportunity. And I would just say, go for it. Many thanks to our panelists, and Melissa, I'll turn it back to you.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Barbara, for leading such a great conversation. Lots of insights, lots of expert advice were given. So thank you so much for your amazing moderating skills. Once again, thank you to our schools that sponsored today's webinar. Attendees, if you have any questions about some of the content that you saw or our upcoming programming, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at premba@fortefoundation.org. And I'd like to once again just give a final thanks to our amazing panel of experts for sharing such great information to all of our audience. I know they found it to be highly invaluable. The Q&A just kept going. So thank you all for investing in yourself and spending this lunch hour with us. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.